My 5-year engagement shattered by a cruel joke. Then his mother called, her voice trembling. Just over 5 years. Can you believe it? That's how long Liam and I had been a we, and it had been 8 blissful months since I'd eagerly said yes. We totally hit it off at a friend's party, bonding over our shared eye rolls at reality TV and our mutual obsession with vintage video games. Our story felt like something out of a rom-com. A year of dating, 2 years shacked up in an apartment, 3 years welcoming our tiny, furry dictator Mochi into our lives. And then, last summer, the ring. Liam's proposal was so him. No frills, just us on our favorite park bench. He fumbled with the box, hands shaking a little, and I didn't even have to think about it. October was the month we picked, and my world exploded into a whirlwind of Pinterest boards and vendor spreadsheets. Or, my world exploded while Liam mostly offered non-committal nods. Then, about 3 months back, things started to feel off. When I brought up florists or playlists, he'd get this weird hesitance. That's a lot of cash for just one day, he'd mumble, looking at a picture of a super cute rustic barn. Or, do we really need to invite everyone? I brushed it off, thinking it was just typical pre-wedding jitters, or maybe he was suddenly watching his pennies. Then came the infuriatingly vague replies to my carefully crafted texts. Catering options are in, I'd message, and his reply would finally trickle in hours later. Looks fine, or whatever you want. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd just say work was crazy. His construction firm had taken on some big projects, so it made sense, right? Last month, he started hanging out more with his work friend, Sam. Beers after work, watching games at Sam's place. Again, nothing super unusual, just more often. And when he came home, he seemed distant, glued to his phone, and way less cuddly. I tried to talk to my best friend Chloe about it. She said it was probably just pre-wedding nerves and suggested we do a date night to reconnect. So, last Friday, I booked a table at this new Italian spot downtown, put on a dress I hadn't worn in ages, nothing too fancy, just nice, and even stocked the fridge with Liam's favorite beer. The date night? A total train wreck. He was completely checked out during dinner, barely saying a word. When I brought up finalizing our honeymoon plans, he just dropped the bombshell. He wasn't sure he was ready for all this. Not just the honeymoon, but the wedding, marriage, everything. I was floored. 5 years together, 8 months engaged, and now he's not sure? When I pushed him, he started talking about conversations with Sam, how marriage changes things, and brought up Sam's brother's super messy divorce. The whole thing blew up, and I was trying not to make a scene in the restaurant while feeling like my entire world was collapsing. We barely touched our food. The ride home was silent, thick with tension you could cut with a knife. At the apartment, he totally dodged talking more, saying he needed time to think, and then slept on the couch. The next morning was painfully awkward. We tiptoed around each other like strangers sharing an Airbnb. He mumbled something about meeting Sam and some work buddies for lunch to watch the game at the Rusty Nail, the sports bar downtown. I was too emotionally wiped out to even argue. A few hours later, Chloe called and practically dragged me out of the apartment. We grabbed coffee, and I just unloaded everything. Chloe listened, bless her, suggesting maybe it was just normal pre-wedding anxiety. After coffee, we wandered aimlessly through Target, my usual stress relief ritual. I bought some totally unnecessary throw pillows and new shampoo because retail therapy is still therapy, right? By early evening, I felt a little calmer and headed home. I was pulling into our apartment complex when I got a text from Adam, one of Liam's co-workers I'd met at the company Christmas party. The message just asked if I was okay, saying things got weird at the Rusty Nail. I called Adam instead of texting back. He sounded super uncomfortable, really reluctant to spill the beans. But after I pushed a little, he finally told me what happened. The guys had been giving Liam a hard time about wedding planning, and when Sam asked if he was ready to be with one woman forever, Liam apparently expressed doubts about the wedding timing. Then Sam asked what was holding him back, and Liam, who was apparently pretty drunk, said something like, "If you were prettier, I'd be more excited about marrying you." And then he just laughed it off like it was a joke. Adam said he and some other guys called Liam out for it, but Liam just got defensive and said they couldn't take a joke. I sat in my car crying for 20 minutes after that call. the man I'd loved for 5 years, who I thought loved me, had publicly joked about my appearance being the reason he was hesitant to marry me. When I finally went inside, Liam was passed out on the couch, still in his clothes from earlier. The apartment reeked of stale beer. I scooped up Mochi and went into the bedroom, locking the door behind us. Sunday morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon, Liam's classic "I'm sorry" breakfast. He looked hungover and sheepish, clearly hoping food would magically fix everything. When I confronted him about what Adam had told me, his face just fell. He immediately tried to downplay it, claiming he was drunk and being stupid. According to him, the guys were razzing him about being tied down, and he'd just said something dumb to shut them up. His defense of guys being guys only made me angrier. We argued about how he could humiliate me in front of his friends, with him insisting that wasn't his intention. He tried to explain he was stressed about wedding costs and pressure, but I just couldn't get past the fact that he'd used my appearance as the punchline to a cruel joke. I couldn't stay in the apartment with him. I grabbed my purse and headed straight for Oliver's place. My brother has always been my safe harbor when things get rough. When I told him what happened, he was furious, ready to go confront Liam directly. I managed to calm him down, explaining I just needed space. All day Sunday, Liam kept texting apologies and begging me to come home and talk. I replied only once, saying I needed time. I called in sick to work on Monday. There was no way I could answer phones at the dental office pretending everything was fine. Around 9 a.m., Monday morning, I got a call from Valerie, Liam's mom. We've always gotten along great. She's actually been way more supportive of our relationship than my own mom, who lives in Florida with husband number 3. She sounded really upset, saying Liam had called her the night before, and there was something important I needed to know. She asked if we could meet somewhere to talk, and that's exactly where I am now. Sitting in my car outside the coffee shop where I'm supposed to meet Valerie in 15 minutes, wondering what else there could possibly be to know, and if my 5-year relationship is completely, utterly over. I never thought I'd be writing this post. I keep looking at my engagement ring, twisting it, wondering if I should have seen this coming. Was I totally blind? Or did things really change this suddenly? Should I even hear Valerie out? What could she possibly tell me that would make any of this okay? First update. First off, thank you all so much for the insane amount of support on my original post. I honestly didn't expect thousands of comments. I tried to read as many as I could between crying jags and stress-eating the emergency Oreos from my brother's pantry. For those asking, yes, I met with Valerie, Liam's mom, and I'll get to that at the end of this update. A lot has happened in the last 2 days, and my brain is still trying to process it all. After posting on Monday, I called in sick to work again. My boss was super understanding. I mean, I've only used 2 sick days in the past year, and apparently I sounded like death warmed over on the phone. I spent most of the morning in Oliver's spare room/storage closet, scrolling through your comments and trying to get my head straight. Around noon, Chloe came over on her lunch break with sandwiches from that deli near the hospital where she works. I hadn't eaten much since Sunday, so even though I wasn't hungry, I forced myself to take a few bites. Chloe gently reminded me that I couldn't avoid Liam forever. We lived together, had joint accounts, and eventually, we'd need to talk. She was right, of course. I couldn't hide at my brother's place indefinitely, especially since Oliver's girlfriend was coming over for dinner that night. The last thing I wanted was to be a sad third wheel at their Taco Tuesday. After Chloe left, I took a shower, borrowed one of Oliver's ridiculously comfy hoodies, don't judge, it was like a warm hug, and drove back to my apartment. The whole way there, I practiced what I wanted to say. No yelling, no crying, just calm, mature, answer-getting. When I pulled into our parking spot, I noticed Liam's truck was there, even though he should have been at work. My stomach did a nervous flip as I walked up the stairs to our second-floor unit. I unlocked the door to find him on the couch in sweats, looking like he hadn't slept in days, surrounded by all the wedding planning binders I'd put together over the last 8 months. Mochi, the little traitor, was curled up right next to him. He looked surprised and relieved to see me. When I asked why he wasn't at work, he mumbled something about taking personal time. Apparently, he'd been looking through all the wedding plans, trying to figure out how he messed up so badly. I stayed standing by the door. I definitely wasn't ready to sit next to him. I told him that looking at wedding plans wasn't going to fix what he'd said. What followed was a long, brutal conversation. He apologized again for the bar comment, calling it inexcusable, and claiming he didn't even believe it. When I asked why he would say something he didn't believe, he explained he was trying to look cool in front of his friends, a response that honestly just made me angrier. I reminded him that he'd expressed doubts about our wedding even when sober, and he finally admitted to feeling stressed about a bunch of things: a work project falling behind schedule, Sam's constant marriage horror stories, and total anxiety about our wedding budget. But instead of talking to me about these concerns, he'd bottled everything up until it exploded in the worst possible way. As we kept talking, he revealed something new: fears about turning into his father. Liam rarely talked about his dad, who left when he was 12 after having an affair with a coworker and moving to Arizona to start a new family. Even though Liam had always insisted it didn't affect him much, he now confessed that he worried about having some genetic predisposition to cheat or abandon his family. I pointed out that he wasn't his father, and that genetics don't determine relationship choices. His response was really telling. He wondered if he could really promise forever, when forever seemed so impossible based on what he'd witnessed growing up. When I asked if he'd discussed these fears with anyone else, he hesitated before admitting he'd been talking to Adam sometimes. Apparently, they'd gotten closer since Adam joined the company, and Adam had gone through some relationship stuff too. That clicked for me. It's why Adam had called me about the bar incident. He already knew about Liam's doubts. The conversation took another difficult turn when I asked exactly what Liam had been feeling. His answer was painfully honest: scared, overwhelmed, and uncertain about marriage despite loving me. He explained that he kept thinking about how his parents seemed happy until suddenly they weren't, and he feared creating the same situation with us. I asked why he hadn't shared these feelings sooner. He claimed he was afraid I'd think he didn't love me enough. The irony wasn't lost on me. By hiding his fears, he'd created exactly the situation he was trying to avoid. When I questioned whether his joke about my appearance came from a real place of unattraction, he insisted he'd always found me attractive. He even referenced our first meeting at the housewarming party, mentioning specific details about my green sweater and his terrible beer pong skills. According to him, the comment came from insecurity and a misguided attempt to seem in control in front of his friends rather than appearing trapped. As we continued talking, I asked a crucial question. Were his doubts about marriage in general, or about marrying me specifically? His hesitation before answering told me everything. He finally admitted that while his fears were primarily about marriage and commitment, part of him wondered if we were right for each other long term. This hurt more than the appearance comment. 5 years together, and he was still wondering if we were right for each other. When I pressed for specifics, he mentioned how we'd both changed since our early 20s. My increased need for planning versus my former spontaneity. His abandoned dreams of starting his own business. Although I pointed out that growth and change are normal in relationships, he questioned whether we'd grown together or apart. By this point, I felt emotionally drained. I told him I needed time away to process everything. His public humiliation, his hidden doubts, and now his uncertainty about our compatibility. He pleaded for us to work through it together, offering to try therapy or couples counseling, but I remained firm about needing space. As I was about to pack more clothes, he mentioned my phone had been buzzing. I checked and saw 3 missed calls from Valerie. With everything happening, I'd completely forgotten our planned coffee meeting. When I mentioned this to Liam, his expression changed to confusion, then concern. He asked what his mom wanted to talk about, and I explained she'd called crying the previous morning, saying she needed to discuss something important after his Sunday night call to her. His reaction was telling. The color drained from his face, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. When I asked what he'd told her, he vaguely mentioned their fight and his doubts, but his evasiveness made me super suspicious. When pressed further, he said it wasn't his place to explain and suggested I should hear whatever it was from his mom directly. I stepped away to call Valerie back. She answered immediately, concerned when I hadn't shown up for our meeting. I explained I was at the apartment talking with Liam. She mentioned having something important to tell me and suggested meeting right away. Her voice sounded strained when I mentioned being with Liam, further increasing my suspicion that there was something significant I didn't know. After arranging to meet Valerie in 30 minutes, I confronted Liam again, asking what his mother knew that I didn't. He finally looked up, his expression a mix of guilt and resignation. He said there was something he should have told me himself, and suggested I talk to his mom, offering to be gone when I returned if that's what I wanted. I quickly packed enough clothes for a week, along with toiletries and my laptop. At the door, Liam said he loved me, but I responded that sometimes love isn't enough. On my way to meet Valerie, Karina, Liam's sister, called. She was clearly concerned, asking what was happening between Liam and me. She mentioned hearing from Sam about the bar incident, and noted that Liam wasn't answering her texts while our mom seemed upset. When I explained I was heading to meet Valerie, Karina seemed surprised and asked if the meeting was about Maria. The name hit me like a truck. "What about Maria?" I asked. Karina's shocked reaction and quick backpedaling told me she'd accidentally revealed something important. She apologized and urged me to hear Valerie out, refusing to explain further despite my pressing. As I pulled into the coffee shop parking lot, I spotted Valerie already waiting at a table by the window. Her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy. Whatever she was about to tell me, I had a feeling it was going to change everything. My phone buzzed with a text as I walked toward her table. It was from Liam. "Whatever my mom tells you, please remember that I do love you. I just got scared and made terrible mistakes. I'll understand if you can't forgive me." I put my phone away, took a deep breath, and sat down across from Valerie. Second update. Thank you all for the support on my previous posts. Reading your comments has been both comforting and overwhelming. I haven't been able to respond to many, but please know I've read them and appreciate the advice. I'm writing this from a new location, Chloe's apartment. After meeting with Valerie yesterday, I couldn't face going back to Oliver's or our apartment. Chloe has a pull-out couch that's slightly more comfortable than Oliver's storage room futon. Plus, her cat, Pepper, doesn't judge me for crying into my cereal at 2 a.m. So, the meeting with Valerie. Where do I even start? The coffee shop was buzzing for a Tuesday afternoon. Some local community college had just let out classes, and students with laptops occupied every corner booth, the kind with high backs that create at least the illusion of privacy. She looked different than the last time I'd seen her, at our monthly family dinner 3 weeks ago. Her usually perfect bob was slightly disheveled, and she wasn't wearing any makeup. In the 5 years I've known her, I've never seen Valerie without at least mascara and lipstick. She's not vain, it's just her routine, like how some people can't start their day without coffee. When I arrived, she stood to hug me. She smelled like those lavender dryer sheets she always uses. I ordered a black coffee, even though what I really wanted was one of those sugary caramel things with extra whipped cream. Somehow it felt wrong to order something frivolous for this conversation. Liam had called her Sunday night in a complete emotional meltdown. While she acknowledged his fears about commitment and turning into his father were real, there was something much more immediate causing his behavior. Maria. I nearly choked on my coffee. Maria? The new project coordinator at Liam's company? The woman he'd mentioned a few times in passing? As Valerie explained, while nervously shredding a napkin into tiny pieces, Liam had developed feelings for Maria over the past few months. Nothing physical had happened, at least according to what Liam told his mother. But there was an emotional connection that had him questioning everything about our relationship. I sat there trying to process this information, feeling like the coffee shop was tilting sideways. While Valerie continued talking, I was mentally connecting dots, building a timeline. Maria had started at Liam's company around New Year's. I'd met her briefly at the company holiday party in March. By then, Liam had already been acting different, more distant, checking his phone constantly, spending more time with work friends. What I'd written off as stress from his big project now looked like something else entirely. When I asked Valerie why she was telling me this instead of protecting her son, her eyes welled up. The parallel to her own marriage breakdown became clear as she shared more details. Before Liam's father left for Arizona with his coworker, there had been months of distance, hurtful comments, and manufactured arguments, all designed to create distance rather than admit the truth. She didn't want to see history repeat itself, with me left in the dark while Liam took the coward's way out. The comment at the bar suddenly made more sense. Not just drunken stupidity, but a subconscious attempt to sabotage our relationship so he wouldn't have to make the hard choice himself. We talked for over an hour. Valerie shared more about her own experience, how she'd tried to save her marriage even after learning about the affair, how she'd blamed herself for not being enough. Before we parted ways in the parking lot, she said something that's been echoing in my head ever since. The hardest lesson I learned was that you can't make someone choose you. They either do or they don't, and anything in between is just delaying the inevitable. I sat in my car for a long time afterward, staring at my phone. There were 3 new texts from Liam. All variations of "I'm sorry" and "I love you." But not a single mention of Maria, still hiding the full truth. Instead of responding to him, I called Chloe and asked if I could crash at her place. She didn't hesitate or ask questions, just said she was already making up the pull-out couch and offered to pick up dinner on her way home. That's the kind of friend everyone deserves during a crisis. I finally texted Liam back. "I know about Maria. Don't contact me again until you're ready to tell me the complete truth. I'll be collecting more of my things tomorrow while you're at work." Then I blocked his number. Not permanently, just for the night. I needed space to think without his explanations or justifications. On the drive to Chloe's, Karina called. The conversation confirmed what Valerie had told me and added another layer. She had overheard Liam and Sam discussing the situation last Thursday. She'd confronted her brother and made him promise to be honest with me after the weekend. Clearly, he'd failed to follow through on that promise. What surprised me most was Karina's unwavering support. Despite being Liam's sister, she made it clear she was on my side in this situation. The relief I felt was enormous. I'd been worried about losing not just Liam, but his entire family, who had become my family over the years. Chloe's apartment was exactly what I needed that night. A neutral space where I could just exist without explaining myself. We ate Thai food on her living room floor, her coffee table covered with papers from her online class, while watching a baking competition neither of us really followed. The mundane normality of it was like a life preserver in the middle of my emotional storm. After Chloe went to bed, I stayed up scrolling through photos on my phone. 5 years of memories with Liam. Vacations, holidays, random selfies on ordinary days. Our engagement photos showed us grinning like we'd won the lottery. I was making mental plans for the next day, going to the apartment while Liam was at work, packing more things, maybe talking to the landlord about breaking our lease, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Margot, this is Maria. I know you blocked Liam. Can we meet tomorrow? There's more to the story that you should know. Just the 2 of us." I stared at the message for a long time, my heart pounding. What more could there possibly be? And why would this woman want to tell me directly? After what felt like an hour but was probably only minutes, I typed a response. Where and when? 3rd update. First, thank you all for the overwhelming support on my previous posts. I've been reading your comments during sleepless nights, and they've helped more than you know. For those asking how I'm doing, I'm surviving. Some moments are easier than others. The meeting with Maria happened and it went nothing like I expected. We met at this little breakfast place near the park. Neutral territory, I guess. When I arrived, she was already there, nervously scrolling through her phone. She looked different than I remembered from the company party. Less polished, more human somehow. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore minimal makeup. What surprised me immediately was how uncomfortable she seemed. If she'd been having some secret emotional affair with my fiancé, shouldn't she have been more confident? Instead, she kept fidgeting with her coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. The conversation revealed 2 major bombshells. First, Maria had no idea Liam had developed feelings for her until Sam mentioned it casually last week. According to her, she and Liam had worked closely on a project, occasionally texting about work after hours, but nothing that crossed any lines from her perspective. She'd never flirted with him or encouraged anything beyond friendship. She showed me their text history, mostly work stuff, occasional memes, nothing romantic or inappropriate. She even had a boyfriend of 3 years who sometimes joined their group for happy hours. The second revelation was about Sam. Apparently, he'd been deliberately stirring things up. Maria had overheard him at work encouraging Liam to explore his options before settling down, specifically mentioning her as someone who gets Liam better than I do. She explained that Sam had been telling everyone at work that Liam was having cold feet about the wedding, making jokes about him being trapped and missing out on his freedom. By the end of our meeting, I felt strangely calm. Maria wasn't the villain I'd imagined. She was just a bystander caught in Sam's manipulation and Liam's weakness. Before we parted ways, she said something that stuck with me. "You seem like someone who knows their worth. Don't let anyone make you question it." I left that meeting with a new perspective and a plan. This wasn't just about Liam and me anymore. It was about Sam's toxic influence, Liam's family history, and where I fit into all of it. I texted Karina afterward, asking if she'd help arrange a family meeting at her apartment. Neutral territory since I wasn't ready to be alone with Liam yet. She agreed immediately. That brings me to yesterday's dinner. Karina had set everything up in her small but cozy apartment. She'd ordered food from that Italian place near her building. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. Valerie arrived first, then Sam, Karina had insisted he attend, and finally Liam, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. The first 20 minutes were excruciating. We all sat around Karina's dining table, pushing pasta around our plates, making strange small talk about the weather and Karina's new coffee table. The elephant in the room was practically stealing food off our plates, but no one wanted to be the first to acknowledge it. Finally, Valerie broke the silence by stating bluntly that we weren't there for a social gathering, but to address what had been happening and find a way forward. That opened the floodgates. I shared what I'd learned from Maria, watching Sam's face carefully as I spoke. The way his expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness told me everything. He tried to interrupt, claiming he was just looking out for his friend, but Karina shut him down immediately. Liam mostly sat in silence, staring at his barely touched pasta. When directly addressed, he admitted that Maria had just been friendly, but he'd built it into something else because he was scared of turning into his dad. Valerie visibly flinched at that comment. When I brought up the joke at the bar, Liam looked genuinely ashamed. He admitted it had nothing to do with Maria. It was just him being a coward. Sam was giving him a hard time about being whipped, and instead of standing up for our relationship, he'd said something horrible to seem cool. According to Liam, it was never about my looks. Sam tried to dismiss it all as just guy talk, but Karina reminded everyone that Liam and I were supposed to get married in 3 months. That simple statement, the reminder of our rapidly approaching wedding date, hit me like a physical blow. The save the dates had gone out, deposits had been paid, my dress was hanging in Chloe's spare closet waiting for final alterations. That's when I quietly said I didn't think the wedding was happening anymore. The room went silent. Liam started to protest, but I cut him off. I explained how I'd spent the last week trying to understand how we got here. What I'd realized was that this wasn't just about Maria, or that joke, or even Sam's toxic influence. This was about Liam not being honest, with me or himself. I told them how I'd ignored the signs for months. His disinterest in wedding planning, his increased time with Sam, his emotional distance. I'd made excuses because it was easier than confronting the truth, but I deserved someone who was certain about me, someone who didn't need a family intervention to figure out their feelings. Sam made a snarky comment about me being dramatic, which earned him simultaneous shut-up responses from both Valerie and Karina. Liam insisted he was certain about loving me, just scared of messing everything up. I pointed out that he already had. The conversation continued for hours. There were tears, heated words, especially between Karina and Sam, and difficult truths. We rehashed old wounds and uncovered new ones. Around midnight, when everyone was emotionally exhausted, we reached the inevitable conclusion. The wedding was off. Our 5-year relationship had run its course. It wasn't a screaming match or a dramatic exit. It was a mutual recognition that something fundamental had broken between us. Trust. Maybe it could be rebuilt eventually, but not in time for an October wedding. Not with Maria still working at Liam's company. Not with the echo of that joke still hanging between us. Karina drove me back to Chloe's place afterward, assuring me this didn't change my relationship with her or Valerie. According to her, I was still family to them, regardless of what happened with Liam. When I got back to Chloe's apartment, I sat on the pull-out couch in the dark, letting the reality wash over me. 5 years, gone, wedding, canceled, future, unknown. I didn't cry right away. Instead, I made a list in the Notes app on my phone. Call venue to cancel. Deposit probably gone. Return ring. Contact guests. Move out of apartment. Change relationship status on social media. Ugh. It was past 2 a.m. when Chloe shuffled out from her bedroom. She'd heard me come in and wanted to check if I was okay. When I told her the wedding was off, she simply sat beside me on the pull-out and put her arm around my shoulders. We sat like that until sunrise. Not saying much, just existing in the strangeness of my new reality. This morning, I woke up to a text from Liam asking if we could meet to discuss practical matters. The apartment lease, separating our finances, what to do with the furniture we bought together. So adult. So final. I also had a message from Oliver asking when he should come over to help pack my things. My brother, always practical. And one from my mom, who'd somehow heard through the grapevine, probably from one of my cousins who follows Karina on Instagram, and wanted to know if she should cancel her flight for the wedding. The ring feels heavy on my finger now. I've been twisting it absently, a nervous habit I didn't realize I had. It's a simple design, a round diamond in a white gold setting, nothing flashy or elaborate. Liam had chosen it because it was classic, like our relationship. The irony isn't lost on me. I called the venue this morning. The coordinator was sympathetic but firm. The deposit is non-refundable this close to the date. $8,000 down the drain. Money we'd saved for over a year, cutting back on vacations and new clothes and dinners out. The practical side of me winces at the waste. The emotional side doesn't care about money right now. Karina texted that she'd found a photographer who might be willing to transfer our deposit to another event in the future. Valerie offered to help contact family members about the cancellation to spare me the awkward conversations. Small kindnesses in the aftermath. Sam, unsurprisingly, sent a non-apology text about how these things happened for a reason, and how I'd find someone better suited, eventually. I deleted it without responding. Maria sent a short message expressing her regret about the situation and assuring me again that nothing happened between them. I believe her, strangely enough. She seems like collateral damage in this mess. A convenient projection for Liam's fears and Sam's manipulation. The hardest part is the mundane reminders. The wedding planning binder still sitting in my tote bag. The shared Spotify playlist we'd been building for the reception. The honeymoon research folder on my laptop. Little pieces of a future that no longer exists. Chloe suggested I take a mental health day from work. But I decided to go in. Sitting at home, scrolling through Reddit and overthinking everything seemed worse than the distraction of answering phones and filing insurance claims. My coworkers have been mercifully normal. Either they don't know yet, or they're politely pretending not to notice my puffy eyes and absent engagement ring. I'm meeting Liam tomorrow at a coffee shop to exchange keys and discuss the apartment. He's agreed to move out since my name is on the lease, and he can stay with his cousin temporarily. Another practical conversation in the business of dismantling a relationship. Part of me still can't believe this is happening. Last month we were debating reception songs and testing cake flavors. Now we're dividing up kitchen appliances and deciding who keeps the PlayStation. I keep thinking about something Valerie said at the dinner. Endings are rarely clean or perfect. Most of the time they're messy and sad and complicated. She would know. She rebuilt her life after Liam's father left, raised 2 kids alone, found happiness again eventually. Looking at her now, you'd never guess she went through something so painful. Maybe there's hope in that. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time. Tomorrow I'll handle the apartment and finances. Next week I'll start looking for my own place. The future beyond that is blurry, but it exists. Karina just texted to ask if I want to meet for coffee this weekend. She mentioned that her family friend Kenzo, an older gentleman who's known their family forever, offered his vacation cabin if I need a getaway to clear my head. The support from Liam's family is unexpected, but deeply appreciated. I haven't decided if I'll take Kenzo up on his offer. Part of me wants to escape somewhere quiet to process everything. Another part knows I need my support system right now. Chloe with her practical compassion, Oliver with his protective big brother energy, even Valerie and Karina with their complicated loyalty. What I do know is that I won't be checking my wedding countdown app anymore, won't be pinning reception decor ideas, or practicing a new signature with Liam's last name. That future is gone. And while I don't know what comes next, I'm starting to believe there will be something. Last update. It feels strange to be writing this final update from my new apartment. It's been 3 months since the family dinner that ended my engagement. 3 months of piecing my life back together in ways I never expected. Some of you have sent messages asking for an update, so here it is. The good, the bad, and the unexpected. First, the practical stuff. Liam moved out of our shared apartment within a week of our breakup. Oliver and Chloe helped me pack up his things while he was at work, leaving them neatly labeled in the living room for him to collect. It was surreal, separating 5 years of shared existence into his and mine. the coffee maker he'd gotten for his birthday, the throw blanket I'd bought on our weekend trip to that little mountain town, the framed photos we'd hung on every wall. The apartment felt hollow afterward, like a stage set rather than a home. I lasted 2 more weeks there before the lease manager agreed to let me break the contract with an extra month's payment. It was worth the money to escape the ghost of our relationship that lingered in every room. Finding a new place was harder than expected. The rental market is brutal right now, and my budget as a single person is considerably tighter. I ended up in a smaller 1-bedroom across town, further from work, but with a tiny balcony where I've started growing herbs in dollar store pots. The basil keeps dying, but the mint is thriving against all odds. I choose to see that as symbolic. Financially, it's been an adjustment. Our shared expenses were suddenly all on me. Car insurance, streaming services, even groceries seem more expensive when you're cooking for one. I've become that person who uses coupons and buys store brands, tracks expenses in a spreadsheet, and thinks twice before ordering takeout. Growing up stuff I never thought I'd have to learn at 29. The wedding vendors were surprisingly understanding. The venue kept our deposit, but sent a kind note hoping I'd find happiness. The florist refunded half our payment despite their no-refund policy. The DJ recommended his brother who works at a therapy center, an unexpected but thoughtful gesture. The engagement ring sits in my dresser drawer in its original box. Liam said I should keep it or sell it, that it was bad karma for him to take it back. I haven't decided what to do with it yet. Some days I forget it's there. Other days I open the box and stare at it, wondering how something so small could have represented such big promises. Social media was its own special hell. I waited 2 weeks before changing my relationship status, dreading the flood of questions. When I finally did it, at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, the notifications poured in anyway. Well-meaning friends with their "what happened" messages, distant relatives offering prayers, former classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly sliding into my DMs with faux concern that felt more like curiosity. I posted a brief, vague statement about mutual decisions and requesting privacy, then muted notifications and threw my phone across the couch. Later, I posted a single photo of my new apartment keys with the caption, "New Beginnings." It got fewer likes than my engagement announcement, but felt more genuine somehow. Now, about Liam. We've spoken a handful of times since the breakup, mostly about practical matters. Mail that came to the wrong address, the shared cloud storage account we forgot to separate, returning a borrowed air fryer to his sister. Each conversation has been civil but strained, like acquaintances forced to make small talk in an elevator. He's still working at the same company, still friends with Sam, though Karina tells me they've had some falling out recently, still living at his cousin's place. According to the grapevine, aka Karina, the situation with Maria got awkward after our breakup. She requested a transfer to a different team and has been cold toward him since learning the full story. The biggest surprise came last month when Liam called me out of the blue. He'd started therapy and was doing a lot of self-reflection. He apologized again, this time really sounding like he understood the depth of his actions, not just the consequences. He admitted that letting Sam's negativity influence him, bottling up his fears, and making that awful joke were all part of a bigger pattern of avoiding confrontation and taking responsibility. He said he finally realized that his fears about turning into his father weren't about genetics, but about his own choices. He also said he missed me, but understood if I couldn't forgive him. It was a heavy conversation, and honestly, I didn't know what to say. I just listened. It felt healing, in a way, to finally hear him acknowledge everything. I told him I needed more time, and he respected that. I've been spending a lot more time with Chloe and Oliver. Chloe's been my rock, always ready with an ear to listen or a bad movie to distract me. Oliver, true to form, helped me build all my new furniture and even came over to hang shelves, something Liam always put off. He's been fiercely protective, but also surprisingly gentle, reminding me that it's okay to feel sad, angry, or confused. And Liam's family? They've been amazing. Valerie texts me regularly, just to check in, sometimes sending funny memes. Karina and I get coffee at least once a week. She genuinely feels like a sister to me, and I'm so grateful for that unexpected bond. I even took Kenzo up on his offer and spent a peaceful weekend at his cabin. It was exactly what I needed. Quiet, nature, and a chance to truly clear my head. I left the engagement ring there, tucked away in a drawer in the bedside table. I still haven't decided if I'll ever sell it, but leaving it behind felt like a step forward. Life is different now. It's not the future I meticulously planned, the one filled with Pinterest-perfect weddings and shared retirement dreams. It's messier, more uncertain, but also strangely liberating. I'm learning to cook for one, and sometimes burning things, but hey, practice makes perfect. I'm discovering new cafes in my neighborhood, reading books purely for pleasure, and even trying out a beginner's pottery class. My first vase looks like a lopsided potato, but I'm proud of it. I'm not over Liam, not completely. 5 years of history doesn't just vanish, but I'm moving forward, day by day, moment by moment. I'm choosing myself. I'm learning to trust my instincts again. And for the first time in a long time, the future, while still blurry, feels like it holds genuine possibilities, not just carefully constructed plans.